I do. I think we should start, Zach, with the Jeffrey Lurie news. Okay. Now, I know yesterday we had some fun about, me being a dumb ogre. Today, I needed to explain this one to me like a dumb guy because I am a dumb guy when it comes to the big money here. You're Mr. Stock Market. Okay. Tell me what, what it means when Bloomberg reports that Jeffrey Lurie is looking for a buyer for a minority stake in the Philadelphia Eagles.
Sure. So basically, if I mean, I'll speak on a very elementary level here. If you
Please.
think about the equity as a pie, and
Football money? What? I don't understand.
you're selling a piece of that pie, right? And the key thing here, and this is according to Bloomberg, but from my understanding, this is accurate, that there's no path to controlling interest, right? So they're showing a minority stake, which would give somebody or an institution, because if you remember in Nashville at the league meetings last month, they spoke about private equity being permitted to buy in the teams. So we'll kind of see that development. But what this would allow is a team to, or I'm sorry, is someone or a group to buy into the Eagles, take a stake of the team. And what's also notable here is the 7.5 a billion dollar valuation. That would be the highest valuation in the NFL. I think
For the team as a
for the
whole, not for the percentage that
exactly.
they would be willing to sell.
Yes, yeah. So that's the overall valuation. So if someone were in theory, if someone were to buy 1% at a 7.5 billion valuation, it would be $75 million. If someone were to buy 10%, it would be $750 million, right? And so you can kind of do the math based on that. But there are I can't speak to Jeffrey Lurie's intentions with this. What would matter for Eagles fans is that the team would stay with Jeffrey and his family, but there would be other minority investors, and there are minority owners as it is right now. But I imagine for the Eagles to put this up, or to have a group looking for buyers, there will be enough of a piece of that pie, if you will, to entice somebody else, right? It wouldn't be like a fraction of a percentage for them to solicit buyers, if you will, right? So that's a key part here. And it could be, a cash infusion. There's a number of different things you could say.
I
It's
have a lot of
based.
yeah, I have a lot of mini follow-ups here, just
Yes.
things
Okay.
that I wanna check the box on. First of all, you mentioned that there are currently other minority owners, but
Yep.
your understanding is they have not taken on any minority owners in any recent past, right? This is a new thing.
Relatively recent past. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There. Now, I do believe that Christina Laurie, Jeffrey's ex-wife, has a stake in the team, right? In that they had a divorce in 2012, in 2012, I believe, 2011, 2012, thereabouts, right? So relatively recent past. But no,
Okay.
I think the ownership's been what it's been.
Okay. What is the incentive for a buyer to come in and get, you know, whatever percentage of the team?
It's a good question. So there's a handful of.
If there is no
Go
path.
ahead. Yeah. Yeah. So number one, you can look at it like any other type of investment. That if you believe that this this investment will continue appreciating, then your piece of the pie will appreciate. If you invested in the Eagles 20 years ago or 10 years ago, that investment would appreciate considerably. So there could be that component of it. Sometimes it's there's a vanity component of it too, right? There are only 31 NFL teams that are not publicly traded, right? The Green Bay Packers are publicly traded. This is a very exclusive fraternity. To own a stake of a team, even if you don't have controlling interest, it provides proximity, and there's certainly value in that. And I know some of that I know minority owners with the Eagles who you can see in the locker
Flex.
room, or at practice, or in the draft room, whatever it may be, right? And so there's certainly proximity to something that is exclusive, right? And there there could be other reasons too, but I think either from an investment perspective or from, I don't like to say vanity perspective, but yeah, proximity to something exclusive. It is a very desirable property. Owning a team is a very desirable property. There's much more demand than there is supply.
Okay, and then I think the most important question here is what would be the reason for Jeffrey Lurie to do this now? What would be his incentive?
Yeah, so I obviously can't speak for Jeffrey. That's pretty clear. But a $7.5 billion valuation is pretty significant, right? So eh, let's use the numbers that we said. Like in theory, if someone buys 1%, 75 million, like we said, someone buys 10%, 750 million. That's a significant cash infusion to Jeffrey or to projects, whatever it may be,
Mm.
right? So uh, it could be that there's a number of different things that there's a number of different reasons someone would want liquidity, but that would jump out if there are certain projects that the team might take on. Certainly, having that type of valuation is advantageous. Uh, but yeah, I mean, you imagine that it's a way of raising money essentially.
Sure, and you and I have written about this along with Sheil in the past about how relative to other owners in the NFL, Jeffrey is not this is his main thing. He doesn't
Yeah.
have other revenue streams, right? He's not a like a captain of industry, ripping people off with Flying J or whatever it is. Like this is his main thing. So it's possible that he just needs he or wants an infusion of cash himself. Is this? Would you worry? Are you from like a succession angle? Julian Lurie is set up. We all believe that eventually down the line he's going to be the new owner. Are you worried about like a fox in the hen house type thing? You're bringing somebody in, giving them a small percentage, and then all of a sudden they're going to start pulling away more percentages and try. Even if there is no path to controlling, they're going to try to get controlling.
I can't predict the future, but I don't anticipate that being the case. I think I've had these conversations. We've had these conversations that Jeffrey Lurie's very interested in Julian taking over the team, and I would imagine any type of transaction would ensure there's nothing inhibiting that, so long as that's still Julian's aspiration. I can tell you to the point that you said before, Jeffrey Lurie purchased the team in 1994 for $185 million. At the time, it was the highest that had been paid for a team.
Mm.
The Wall Street Journal panned the purchase. I mean, Jeffrey specifically has told me this. He remembers that,
I can't
uh,
imagine the Wall Street Journal getting something wrong.
and they panned this purchase. And now to get from 185 million to 7.5 billion, like that's a great leap. But I bring that up as a way of saying I understand these are large numbers no matter what, right? Like I'm not saying that, but to your point, for Joshua Harris to purchase the Commanders at $6.5 billion, or what was it, 6 billion, 6.5 billion for the Broncos. I think they sold for 4.65 billion, right? To the Penners, right? So the point being, like for one to purchase teams at that price, Jeffrey or I'm sorry, Tepper in Carolina, what was that, 2 billion or so, 2.5 billion? That requires a lot of a lot of money, and probably
Right. So is
it's
there incentive just to get it on the books that the 7.5
there is
billion valuation is there and probably still only rising?
no, but I'm saying in this is kind of to buttress your point about outside cash flow. Like it takes a certain amount of cash flow to purchase a team at 6 billion compared to purchasing a team at
Sure.
185 million, right? And so that the stakes of NFL ownership has increased significantly, right? And so yeah, certainly it there's definitely value in having that. And by the way, too, like I don't want to be skeptical here, but for them to have an institution helping them find buyers for this stake and for this to appear in Bloomberg, right? It's very much like the Eagles are seeking this. as it's you're able to. I don't know what you're laughing at there.
I'm laughing at Dan McQuaid saying
Oh,
Larry's going to
oh.
use the money to get the windmills back on top of
No,
the stadium.
but I'm saying like there's sometimes where there's transactions behind the scenes, like right. So for this to come out, this can also be interpreted as a means of soliciting interest
Yes,
for this.
right.
Yeah.
You talked yesterday, Zach, about how the best feeling in the world is making your kids laugh. I'm happy to report that I was able to repurpose my Josh Harris face to really crack up Jane yesterday. It was really a total home run. Just
Oh, good. All right. I'm glad that went to use. But Josh Harris, by the way, that's a good example. Like when he bought the Sixers, and there were a number of different minority owners, right? Michael Rubin was a minority owner. Will Smith had a small stake in the team. But you say, why would someone buy in? It's for that. It's like for access to something special. And like the reason why Joshua Harris and David Blitzer have gone on and purchased other teams. This is like it's been good business. Sports franchises have rise at an exceedingly high pace. If you look at simply television ratings, right? Sports are the television deals that are you see the NBA deal that's coming around now. This is if it's much easier said than done, but teams tend to appreciate quite a bit, and there can always be a tipping point. But Mark Cuban just sold a majority stake in the Dallas Mavericks. Sometimes you can strike when there's a high valuation, and that I think is what the I imagine that's what Jeffrey Lurie is doing.
2 questions. First, how high does the NVIDIA stock price have to get for you to be involved in the bidding?
Yeah, I'm not involved.
Or at least to be curious, to be interested about maybe dipping your toe and make it at least maybe an exploratory phone call to Jeffrey.
No. The stock would there'd be a lot more people in front of the line than me. Put it that way. So,
well, maybe they're not interested.
I think there'd be a lot of people interested who own NVIDIA stock.
Okay. The more important question.
Yes.
From an Eagles fan perspective.
Yeah.
Why should I care about this? Does this matter? Is there anything down the pike that would make you a little bit skittish as an Eagles fan?
Yeah, good question. The first thing I would say, why should you care about this? I hate to say it, but palace intrigue, right? People are always intrigued by the palace, so to speak. I don't think there's going to be anything here that materially affects the Eagles, or sorry, materially affects the Eagles fans. If this story didn't come out and there was a silent transaction behind the scenes, there would be nothing I think that would have a material effect on Eagles fans. Now, that said, I think there are significant things coming up with the Eagles that are worth watching that go beyond what's on the field. We talked about it at the owners' meetings. Jeffrey Lurie made a reference to the stadium lease coming up at the end of this decade, right? Now, they could renew the lease, but there could also be capital improvements. A Lincoln Financial Field is not new anymore. NovaCare Complex is not new anymore, as we're seeing with the 76ers right now, as we've seen with other teams. Public funding or public financing for stadiums is not, it's not what it was 25 years ago when Joe Banner and Jeffrey Lurie were building Lincoln Financial Field, right? So I imagine if you look at what's coming up from an ownership level for the Eagles, facilities is a big thing. If you're following the story about Comcast Spectacor and the complex they want to have in South Philly, and there's a good piece up now. Charlie O'Connor, the Flyers ownership, spoke yesterday. This is a big deal with Flyers ownership, and the Eagles. There's talk of whether or not the Eagles would be involved in this. So I think from a fan perspective, from an ownership level, what you want, and we've talked about Jeffrey Lurie, his willingness to pay well for players, for coaches, pay cash for players and coaches, right? So you want that organizational stability there. But I think beyond like the football product, the big thing to watch in the next 6 to 8 years for the Eagles is what happens with facilities.
Okay. Yeah, I think the thing that you touched on there is the only thing that would, worry me if you're an Eagles fan is a lot of the things that Jeffrey Lurie does relative to other owners in the league are go a long way in what makes the Eagles a good organization,
Yes.
right? His willingness to pay and overpay for football operations staff, be that, Jeff Stoutland being like the highest paid position coach in the league, or general manager salaries, or head coach salaries, stuff like that. That stuff matters in terms of just attracting talent. And then also, like, from a roster building standpoint, like eating dead money and being willing to pay cash, as opposed to the Dallas Cowboys, right, who do not do that. If there were like a private equity group that came in and had less of an appetite for that, and if they had a say in things, and they changed the Eagles' operating philosophy in that way, then that would eat away at some of their structural advantages.
True, although the inverse could be true as well, in the sense that the NFL, before last month, when there's talks of allowing private equity to buy stakes in teams, everything's been institutional. It's been family, or it hasn't been corporate owned. That's not been allowed in the NFL, and that's a major difference to other sports. And there is a considerable difference between someone like these long-standing owners. You look at teams like the Giants or the Bengals or the Raiders, compared to the cash flow that might be possible for someone coming in with a lot of money. Like if you're looking in the NBA, new ownership and has changed things quite a bit, and you're much more familiar with European football, soccer, than I am. But my
Beautiful
understanding
game.
from reading about this quite a bit is like, especially foreign ownership and institutional ownership from abroad has dramatically
You're
changed.
worried about the Saudis. You're worried about the PIF.
No, but that's dramatically changed the state of the Premier League, correct?
Yes.
So you can get to a point where like there's an ownership group that just has so much more to spend than other ownership groups, which has not necessarily been as pronounced when it's simply family ownership.
Now, when you say buying a stake in a team,
Mhm.
we're talking like a T-bone, ribeye. Explain this to me.
Yeah, we're talking a piece of a pie, right?
Steak
We're
pie?
talking. So this is how I would explain it to you, Bo. Take a pizza. Okay, cut a pizza into 8 slices.
You got a pizza
okay?
shop, and all the customers come in and they say,
Or
"Well, this
let's
shouldn't be a pizza shop.
yeah.
This should be a porn shop." And you say, "Okay, I got to listen to the customers. That's what we got to do."
let's cut
And
the
then you
pizza.
throw steaks at them.
Yeah, let's cut the pizza into 10 slices, and you take 1 slice. Then you have 10% equity in that pizza. I have 90% equity in that pizza. But if you took 8 slices, then you have 80% equity in that pizza, and I have 20% equity.
That's only if you assume that they were cut equally.
True. I was talking about equal slices. So that is essentially what is happening with the Eagles, and it's going to be an interesting story to follow.
It reminds me of one of the great differences, I think, and probably the biggest positive in the French Open versus the other major Grand Slams. Deuce, take it or leave it. Not, it's confusing for people getting into the game. It's like, what do we mean here? Deuce in French, égalité. Ooh, beautiful. Equality. That's perfect. That's so much better. Big bump for égalité over deuce.
The French is over my head.
We all silly like the mayor.